This is a bit of a catch-up video, so all of the books I read in September, all of the books I purchased or got for my birthday, so I have a book haul for you, and then my plans for my October TBR. So let's dive right in and catch up and talk about some books. Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Haley and I am a Christian wife, homeschooling mother of 3, out to redeem my very own literary education, which of course requires books and lots of them. I have had a hard time getting to YouTube here lately ever since we started homeschooling this year formally. It really doesn't take us that long to homeschool, but it's really kind of thrown off our days and I'm getting adjusted to that. So I'm a little behind on YouTube, but we're trying to catch up. And you'll notice that I'm in a new place. I'm actually in my son's room. I typically film in our bedroom where all of our books are stored. However, my husband's schedule has changed, and so now he needs the bedroom whenever I typically film. So today I'm in here, and probably for a couple of videos I'll be filming in here until I can get my YouTube schedule figured out. But first things first, let's talk about what I read in September. The first book I read in September, I actually did an individual video on, and that was Pilgrim's Inn by Elizabeth Goudge, and I loved that book so much. It is cozy and warm and spiritually reverent and poetic. It follows a family, it follows a mother, a young girl who's falling in love, children, a governess, just this whole family, and then the people who kind of get grafted in as family are on this journey in this beautiful, safe house that has become an inn that they're trying to restore, but it's just lovely. If you are a Charlotte Mason or even a classical homeschooling mother, I really think that you should give that book a try. And if you're interested in more details, I did do an entire video on Pilgrim's Inn. The next book that I read was Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House by Dana K. White. I love Dana K. White for all things home decluttering, home management, because she is just one of those people that just makes it really simple. She kind of self-identifies as someone who is messy, is a slob. Her blog used to be called A Slob Comes Clean, so she understands what it's like to have like a really, really messy house you've got to get under control. And I have loved all of her books for decluttering and home management. But then she came out with this book, Jesus Doesn't Care About Your Messy House. And I knew it was going to be good because I knew it was going to be more of a heart change, not so much of a practical how to declutter your house or get it under control, because she's already written books for that. But what specifically does Jesus say or think about homemaking? Or what does he not say about homemaking that you're actually just being fed by the world or the internet? So it's really a book about what Jesus and the Bible specifically say about homemaking, about decluttering, about mess, and what it means to be a hospitable host, even if things aren't perfect. But what I really liked is it's mostly about what Jesus honestly doesn't say about your house, but what he says about your heart. So it's a really great mind shift. If you're one of those people who wants to host more, but you're embarrassed, you feel like your house is too out of shape, this book is great to change your heart, because sometimes people just really want to be invited in. I started a homeschool co-op this year in my house. That means people are coming over when my house isn't perfect. You know, there's still house projects that need to be done, maybe some parts on the wall that need to be patched or painted, or my ceiling fan is just dusty and there's a complete wreck in the kids' room when these other kids come over, because it's just life. It's okay to invite others into life if you are treating them with love, if you're not showing this great bitterness about your house. It was just a really great book to help change your heart and just encourage you to host and be hospitable with what you have. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that one by Dana K. White. The next book I finished in September was so fun because it was on my 40 books I want to read by 40 list, but it was in the fun category. And September was my birthday month, so this was just the perfect time to read something fun that I was looking forward to. And that book is Wormwood Abbey by Christina Baehr. It's the first book in the Secrets of Ormdale series, and I loved this book so much. It's not very long, but it's great. If you love literature, if you love Victorian, Gothic, cozy type of books, but with dragons, but it's also Christian and has faith elements in it, it's perfect. It was so good. This book follows Edith Worms, whose family just kind of figures out they're inheriting the family estate that they were estranged from. And when they come to this estate, they realize that there's a lot of secrets there. And yes, possibly even dragons. I loved Edith's character because she is secretly an anonymous author of a detective series, which is just so fun. And she loves to read. So there were a ton of literary books mentioned. It's set in the Victorian era, so Edith would naturally be aware of books that were popular during that time or written during that time. So there are allusions to the Brontes and Jane Austen and just so many more. But what I also loved was Edith's stepmother, who is actually a good stepmother in this story, that just so loving. But she is a Charlotte Mason homeschool mom to her core. She is having the younger children do handicrafts and nature study, and she is reading them aloud, like the Blue Fairy book from Andrew Lang, Aesop's Fables, all of these books that I'm actually reading to my daughter right now in her Ambleside online curriculum. So that was just fun, and that makes perfect sense because Christina Baehr, the author, was a Charlotte Mason homeschooling mom. The first time I actually heard about the book Wormwood Abbey in this series was when I listened to Christina Baehr as a guest on Cindy Rollins' homeschool podcast, The New Mason Jar, which is a Charlotte Mason podcast. So you get to hear her story not only as an author, but also as a homeschooling mother in the Charlotte Mason kind of world. I just thought she was fantastic, and I've been waiting to read this book for a long time. And now I can't wait to read all of the rest of the series because I just loved it. It's just exactly what my heart needed to kind of revamp my reading, pull me out of a reading slump, get me into a good reading groove. I loved it. And then the last book I finished in September was The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart. I actually found this book in a little free library on a camping trip and grabbed it because of course it's a homeschool book. However, it's not specifically Charlotte Mason, and it's not from a Christian perspective. This is definitely from a secular perspective and really kind of an eclectic style of homeschooling. So yes, a little bit of unschooling, a little bit of Charlotte Mason classical, kind of just a more creative family rolling with it as you will. So this is a little bit different and out of my realm as a homeschool mom. There's a lot of things that I wouldn't do. I wouldn't just lay math down all the time to play a video game with my children. However, that aside, even though this book wasn't exactly for me, I'm glad I read it because it pulled me out of my comfort zone in some areas where I can be a really type A planning homeschool mom and just plan out the whole thing, but not think twice about what my daughter might would want to do just because I think I'm picking the best thing for her. I love Ambleside Online. I love Charlotte Mason's methods and what we are doing in our homeschool, but I do think it's good to occasionally ask your child what they would want to learn or come alongside them and even do some of the work with them. Like for artist study, when she is recreating a painting, well, I should recreate the painting alongside of her. Just a lot of really creative ideas to make school more fun. I actually didn't know that Julie Bogart was the creator of Poetry Tea Time. When I was first researching Charlotte Mason, Poetry Tea Time was everywhere. That's actually a Julie Bogart thing that's not mentioned in Charlotte Mason's books, So I didn't know that. That was a good revelation, to give credit where credit is due. But there was also an idea in here of not just poetry and treats for literature and read-alouds, but for math, to make math more enjoyable. I have done that since reading this book, and it does make math better for both me and my daughter, because it's not her favorite and it's not my favorite either. But with a cup of tea and a treat, it's definitely better. But what I really loved about this book was the very end, the last part. She talked about a lot of real life mom struggles. And I felt like, okay, this is one of the first homeschool books I've read that doesn't just create an idealistic vision, but also a vision of all of the 100% raw, sometimes like shameful homeschool days that we do have. Because not every day is a perfect homeschool day. So her encouragement at the end of this book was particularly great, and I'm glad I read it for that reason. But really, I would say this book isn't about necessarily being a brave learner, but more of a enchanted learner, and just making homeschool more fun, not only for the kids, but for you as well. So it was fun. It's not my whole philosophy. I'm not going to change a ton, but I did get a few ideas from it, and I'm glad I read it. So there's that. But September was also my birthday month, so not only did I read some good books, I of course received some and bought some for myself as well. So I will start with some of the books that were gifted to me. And the first book is Strong by Lisa Baehr, and it's actually a devotional. I have started this. I'm currently on day 8, and I've liked it so far. You know, I kind of have a hard relationship with devotionals because I often feel like they're not full of spiritual meat. They're just kind of, at this point in my Christian walk, are things I've read before or heard before. But I do like this one. It is good. It's kind of short and sweet and to the point, and I'm going to keep going with it. This one is going to take me, I think, probably 2 to 3 months to get through. So I'm just going to pick it up when I've got the time for it in my Bible study, and eventually I'll let y'all know what I think of it. The next 2 books I got for my birthday were actually sent to me by a booktube friend, Bookish Kelley, who participated in the Enchanted April read-along with me for one of our book discussions, but I'll be sure to link her book channel below. And when I tell y'all I got that package in the mail and saw that it was from her, it absolutely just made my day and just made me really realize why I love BookTube so much, to be able to make real kindred spirit friends there that I just don't have in real life. But Kelley was so sweet to send me not one, no, but two books that were on my 40 books I want to read by 40 list. So sweet of her to do that. But the first one is Agnes Grey by Brontë in this beautiful Wordsworth Classics edition. And the second one is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Brontë, also in that Wordsworth Classics edition paperback. These are gorgeous. It's so funny that she sent me these because not long ago I picked up Animal Farm by George Orwell in this edition, and I thought, you know, I'm going to start collecting these editions for my paperbacks because I love them. They're beautiful and they're comfortable to read. And then she sent me these 2 books, which were on my 40 by 40 list, and in that particular edition, which I just thought was great. Now I've already started Agnes Grey because I just couldn't wait to get into it, and this one is kind of a glimpse into a Victorian governess's life, and I'm really fascinated so far because this governess has a really hard time with the children that she is trying to teach, and it really shows kind of the isolation a governess can feel, just that intellectual stagnancy of being deprived of just really good company and conversation when you always work with children. And as a homeschool mom, I can kind of relate to that. Now, my children are not as bad as some of these children that she has to deal with, but I just found it relatable when these children are really trying to assert their will. I'm sorry, my son is jumping on the bed in his room while I film this video, so if you hear some fun noises, that's just him playing. He's good, he's fine.
I was jumping on the bed.
You were jumping on the bed. But I did relate to when the children were really trying to assert their will over her, and she was just being so resilient, trying to stay patient and calm and control the situation, but it still just didn't happen. That was relatable, and I really enjoyed this so far. It's really short, and the Literary Life podcast has episodes on this, which I will link in the description box below, along with, everything else I talk about. But I cannot wait to listen to that first episode. I'm going to finish up to the first episode chapter, and then I'm going to listen to it. So thank you, Kelley. I am loving this so far. And Brontë was the only Brontë sister I have not read yet, and that is being checked off thanks to you. But she didn't only send me Agnes Grey, she also sent me The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which I don't know a ton about. And I'm going to keep it that way. So we'll see. Stay tuned. But speaking of devotionals, I can't help but throw this in here since Kelley sent me those books. And I read her devotional earlier this year. I read this back in August or July, I think. But her devotional, written by Kelly McFadden, is Goodbye to the Comfort Zone. It is actually an 8-session devotional focusing on some of the Old Testament Bible heroes, Bible characters, and I loved this devotional. There are not many devotionals that I loved, but I actually really appreciated that this was only 8 sessions. I'm far more likely to finish this than one that's going to take me 2 or 3 months to get to. But it was so encouraging because, yes, sometimes when God calls you to do something, yeah, it's going to take you out of your comfort zone, but he's going to be right there with you the whole way. I really loved her insight. It was interesting because I know her from Booktube, to actually hear her thoughts on some of these old Bible stories and her encouragement, because she is a sister in Christ who is more mature than me in her faith. And I really loved it. So I'll be sure to link this below, as well as Kelley's channel. And I highly recommend this if you're looking for a devotional for your Bible study. So now on to the 3 books that I purchased myself for my birthday, because I'm pretty strict with my book budget, only really trying to buy maybe 1 book a month. I've been great with that this year. I haven't bought a ton of books. I've just been reading the books that I've already owned. But my birthday month is an exception, of course, and so I did buy myself some books. Not many, but enough to go into my October TBR. The first book I got was Vera by Elizabeth Von Arnim. Elizabeth Von Arnim is the author of The Enchanted April and Elizabeth and Her German Garden. I read both of those earlier this year. The Enchanted April for the second time, and the first time reading Elizabeth and Her German Garden. I fell in love with Elizabeth Von Arnim and her writing and her storytelling, and so I looked up all of the other books that she's written. And I heard that Vera was like Wuthering Heights if it were written by Jane Austen. I know nothing else about Vera going in other than that, and honestly, that's all I need to know. I love Elizabeth Von Arnim's writing, and I love Wuthering Heights, and I love Jane Austen, so I think I'm going to love this book. I've also heard that it was kind of a predecessor to Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which I read last fall. This just checks all the boxes for me for a good fall read, so I bought it. So this will be the 3rd Elizabeth Von Arnim book that I've read this year, and I can't wait. And then the next book that I bought for myself was Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is another book I really want to read this fall, and it's one I don't own. The Literary Life podcast also has episodes for Dracula. They're actually reintroducing those right now, and so I wanted to get Dracula for this fall. Last year I read Wuthering Heights and Frankenstein, which were really great fall classics to read. So this year I want to read another great fall classic, and that's going to be, of course, Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now, I'm sure, like Frankenstein surprised me. It wasn't what I expected from the movies, and I'm sure Dracula's probably the same way. I want to know the classic story of Dracula, not just what Hollywood portrays. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And then last but not least, when my husband and I went on a date night and went out to eat, we also went to a used bookstore for my birthday. And I found this little gem called Books Children Love, a guide to the best children's literature, written by Elizabeth Wilson. But what caught my eye was that the foreword was written by Susan Schaefer Macaulay, who is of course the author of For the Children's Sake, kind of the book that reintroduced Charlotte Mason to the United States homeschooling movement. So when I saw she wrote the foreword to this, I had to at least pick it up. And this book is basically a book list for all subjects. It kind of reminds me of Book Girl, written by Sarah Clarkson, which is her personal book lists in all of these different categories. And I feel like this is kind of what, what's that book? Honey for a Child's Heart would be like. Just a book of book recommendations for every subject. So biography, Bible, spiritual and moral training, art and architecture, animals, literature levels, poetry, mathematics, which I desperately need because we're both struggling in math right now, music, science and technology. And flipping through here, there were a lot of books I recognized, but what I loved was that there were a lot of books I didn't. Book names I have not seen pop up on all of the Charlotte Mason lists. So if I can find this online, I will link it in the description below because I think it's just going to be a great homeschool resource for me. So I'm excited for that. And also the cover. The cover is just adorable. That is just my style and I love it. Now, it is no surprise that my October TBR is of course going to come from some of those birthday books I got for my birthday or I bought for my birthday, because October reading is just my favorite. Like I said last year, I read Frankenstein and Wuthering Heights. They were both knockouts and I loved them. So for this October, I'm going to be, of course, reading Agnes Grey and finishing this up. And by the way, I did not show y'all this gorgeous woven bookmark that Kelley sent me also with my books for my birthday. Very beautiful. I love it. But Agnes Grey is going to be the first book I read, so I know I'm going to get through this one. So this will probably be my next bookish video that I put out on my channel, will be my review of this, because it's not very long and I'm loving it, so I know I'm going to fly through it. And then the next book I plan on reading is, of course, Vera by Elizabeth Ann Arnhem, because I can't wait to read this book. Just hearing that it's like Wuthering Heights if it were written by Jane Austen, I just don't think that you could hook me for a book any better than that. So I'm excited to try this one because it's not one I see any reviews for out on Booktube. I'm sure there are. You just don't hear about this book. Or I don't, hardly ever. So I can't wait to read it and review it for y'all. And then last, but of course not least, is Dracula, which, like Frankenstein, is probably just one of the ultimate October Halloween type books to read. Now, I'm not sure if I'll finish Dracula or not. My reading has been really slow since we started homeschooling, but I feel like I'm pulling a little bit out of my slump just as we're getting our schedule and routine down a little bit more. So I actually may finish this one. I'm at least hopeful, and I at least know that I will start it in October. And I will be listening to the episodes from the Literary Life podcast for this one as well. And I can't wait. And if I have time, I also plan on squeezing in some short stories. This is a part of my literary education that I have just neglected. I don't think I've read a short story since high school. So I want to try that. And of course in October I'm going to read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. I forgot to grab that book out of my bookshelf, so I'll just put a picture of it up here. But that's actually a collection of short stories by Washington Irving, so I may read more than one. For sure The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and possibly Rip Van Winkle I want to squeeze in this October. So we will see, and I will keep y'all posted. But please let me know in the comments below what you are reading for October. I just love this reading month because it's so atmospheric. So I can't wait. Y'all let me know what you're reading below in the comments. Let me know if you have read any of these books that I have picked out. And Lord willing, I will see y'all next time. Happy reading, friends.